Hi, it's the end of May, so it's time to do the second half of my May wrap up. And this second half, I read 8 books, so that's not bad. 15 in total for May, so pretty pleased. The first one I read was one that my friend had given me she'd lent me, and it was When I Was 10 by Fiona Cummins. And this was a thriller, and it was really good. It was about three girls, 2 sisters and a best friend. And when they were 10, one of the sisters murdered their parents and spent time in jail. We move on to present time. The book is set in present time because one of the sisters has now decided to tell her story for the first time, which unleashes a whole can of worms, and there's secrets and lies and revelations and twists, and that was really good. That was Fiona Cummins, When I Was 10. The second one I read was a NetGalley one, The Last White Man by Moshin Hamid, and it's one that didn't really work for me at all. And it's about Anders, who wakes up to find that he's changed colour. So that was that one. It's one it just didn't gel for me at all, that one. The next one was The Sentence by Louise Erdrich, and this is on the Women's Prize for Fiction shortlist. Finally got around to reading this one. My library finally delivered. And again, this was one I really enjoyed. It's a bit spooky, a bit supernatural, because we follow Tuki, who's a Native American woman, and she's really been released from jail. When she was a young woman, she committed almost a comic crime caper and ended up being sentenced to 60 years. But she didn't serve 60 years. She came out. She developed a love of reading in jail, so she got a job in a bookstore. She got married. And it's her story because one of her customers in the bookstore dies and then haunts the bookstore. So the whole book is what to do with this ghost in the bookstore. And as well, we are brought into present time because it covers the lockdowns and the George Floyd murder, and it is a really good book. I really enjoyed that one. The next one was on the Booker International shortlist, and it was Cursed Bunny, which was a selection of short stories from South Korea, and weird, quirky, grotesque, you name it. It had everything in it. We have sort of fantasy and fable as well. We have sad stories. We have stories that turn your stomach. I mean, the very first one, a woman goes to flush the loo, and a head made up of all her waste products appears in the loo and calls her mother. So that sets the tone for the rest of the book. And they were some really weird and bizarre stories in there, and I loved it. I just loved reading all these bizarre things. The next one was another NetGalley one, and it's another thriller, another spooky thriller that comes out in June, and it's called Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. And the only disappointing thing with this is it deals a lot with children's pictures. The children's pictures are an integral part of this story, and on Kindle you just get bits of them. You don't see the whole picture. It's so frustrating because these pictures are relevant to the story, but you can't see them. And you've got Mallory, who's a recovering drug addict. She's got a job as a nanny with Ted and Caroline, looking after 5-year-old Teddy, who loves drawing, and he keeps giving Mallory these drawings. And a lot of these drawings feature his imaginary friend Anya. And when these drawings take on a rather sinister turn, Mallory gets really worried. She thinks he's being possessed, and there's an unquiet spirit in the house. that is wanting closure. And that was really good, really spooky. I enjoyed that one. The next one was one of my 5 stars, again a NetGalley. It comes out in July, and it's The Museum of Ordinary People by Gayle. I've read one of my Gayles before and I loved it. And this one I loved just as much. So many layers, and the characters are absolutely wonderful. Jess is a grieving daughter. Her mother died suddenly, and she clears the house, and it's this thing about wanting to keep everything but not being able to. And she finds this museum of ordinary people. She gets told about it, and one chap had decided that he kept a warehouse and he just stored things that people didn't want to throw away. You've got a tin box of children's teeth, you've got letters, you've got the chair that a husband always used to sit in because the wife didn't want to send it off to the dump. She wanted to know that it was there. And she takes her encyclopedias to this museum, and it ignites something in her. And the book is about her wanting to turn this into a museum, to be a proper museum for the ordinary people. And the book is about that, and the characters that she meets on the way. And oh, I loved it. Absolutely loved that one. That was a 5 star. And the next book I read, another NetGalley that comes out in August, that was also a 5 star. And it's quirky, it's unique. It's called Isaac and the Egg, and it's debut novel by Bobby Palmer. And it is so difficult to describe it because it is just, I've never read anything like it. It is emotional, it's full of grief, pain, love, hope, joy, laughter. It is just wonderful. Isaac's wife Mary died, and he finds that he just cannot survive without her. The pain he is suffering is awful. And the book starts with him on a bridge screaming, only to hear something screaming back, and he finds an egg. But not just an ordinary egg, a special egg that he takes home, and these two begin to communicate. And it is just bizarre, it's weird, it's funny. You get your tissues out because you cry. It is absolutely wonderful. And the final book of the month I read was one of my birthday gifts, and it was The Mermaid by Christina Henry. And I've read her Lost Boy, which is an almost retelling of Peter Pan from Captain Hook's point of view. This one is a mix of historical fiction and magical fantasy, because we have the world of P.T. Barnum, and Christina Henry describes P.T. Barnum with a bit of artistic license. Amelia is a mermaid, and P.T. Barnum wants to display her, and she is a fantastic character. She really is. She is full of life, she's full of spirit, she definitely knows her own mind. A fantastic story, this one. It wasn't what I was expecting. When I saw the title, I thought, oh, Little Mermaid vibes, Disney retelling. Nothing like that at all. A story about a strange and unusual woman, and a really good historical fiction with a bit of magical realism. So those are my 8 books of the second half. Add them on to my 7 books of the first half of May, and my book of the month, it's got to be, I had 2 5 stars, only 2 5 stars this month, the Gayle Museum of Ordinary People and Bobby Palmer's Isaac and the Egg. But for sheer inventiveness, for the emotions that I went through reading that book, it has got to be Isaac and the Egg. That has got to be my book of May. So happy reading, take care, and I will see you soon, and I will start reading my books of June. Take care, bye.